we provide you 4 strategies that every family can modify based on your family values, based on your child, the age of your child. But all 4 strategies helps you know how to train your child to protect themselves. I'll give you one of the 4. Again, age of child, you modify it. The first one, it's called the circle of trust. The first strategy, you teach your child, and again, the younger the child, the smaller the circle, because they can only keep so many people in mind. Maybe it's just your mom, dad, and your sister. That's it. That's your circle of trust. And in your circle of trust, nobody can tell you to keep secrets from your circle of trust. So if someone tells you to keep a secret, you go, okay, but not to the members of the circle of trust. There is 0 secrets in the circle of trust. And again, if they're little, you tell them that way. If they're a little older, obviously, you don't have to couch it in such an elementary level. Another strategy is, especially when they're younger, teach them words that's a shutdown word. Use the words that the teachers use against you. So if they show you a book that's obscene, or a video of sex and butt plugs and things, that in California, that's comprehensive sex ed is so vulgar, it's so obscene, it's basically porn. Or the teacher counselors start asking you about, do you have guns in the house, and is your parents divorced, and all these different personal questions, so that they can start profiling your kid. You teach your child, if they start talking to you about these topics that are off limits, you say, I don't feel safe with you. I want to stop this conversation. I don't feel safe with you.
Perfect.
I feel harassed. Perfect. Call my mom. And those are shutdown words, because if your child says that and they keep going, that's a huge problem. Even in California, as a lawyer, you would.
I'm loving this. I love it.
So those 4, again, there's 4, very simple. Are they the end all be all? Absolutely not. And I hope the 4 strategies will actually inspire you to come up with things that make sense to your family, right? If you're an Indian family, a Japanese family, if you're a Muslim family, that's, you guys, there's different cultures. I get that. But those 4 strategies that we're giving you, it applies to everybody. It helps your child have shutdown words. It teaches them things like circle of trust. You teach them all just really great things that maybe a parent.
Do the last 2, because I love these. Will you just quickly run through the last 2? Circle of trust, shutdown words, and
one of them are topics. There are certain topics that there's a certain amount of topics that you don't talk about except with the people from the circle of trust. And the way we couch that is, the first one, it's going to be the circle of trust. The last one is that shutdown word. But the second one is topics for families only. So again, if you're little, you got to keep it simple, but you're older, you can talk to your if they're 8th grade or whatever, 9th grade, but you can say, these are the topics that anyone in school asks you. You say, I only talk about it with people in my circle of trust, and you're not in my circle of trust. And they keep pushing it. You go, I don't feel comfortable talking to you. I feel unsafe. They can't shut the hell up about the word unsafe. You teach your child to say that I feel unsafe. I feel harassed. I feel harassed. Right. I feel marginalized. Call my mom. Right. So that's the first one. Circle of trust, establish topics for family only. And the third one, and this is the third one, is rehearse the responses. That's the mistake. It's not the last one. It's the third one. Rehearse the responses with your child, the shutdown words, the shutdown responses. The last one's probably the hardest. At least for me, it was. As a parent, especially as a father, especially if you're a father of girls, your natural inclination is avoidant. You don't want to hear the trans. You don't want to hear non-binary. You just want to keep them away, right? And I always say, you just got to keep your kids away from social media, and don't let them watch any Disney shows that are made after 2013 or, something like that, right? You go back to Lion King, you go back to the classics. But here's the problem. If you avoid these things, if you avoid these words, diversity, things like that, if you don't get to them, they will. And if whoever plants the flag in your child's mind, that's the definition they're going to remember. So you want to not expose them.
You want to get there first. Okay.
But you want to do it slowly, like what vaccines were supposed to do, right? You're supposed to inoculate them slowly. So you start to introduce the word diversity on your terms. You introduce inclusion on your terms. We include everybody because we want to be nice, but we don't include people in our circle of trust, do we? No. See, it's not always about inclusion. Sometimes it's about, this is our circle of trust. We're excluding people, and that's okay. So now when someone goes, oh, you got to be inclusive, you're like, no, but in my circle of trust, I'm not inclusive. So now you give them you got to give them a foundation to these words, transgender and binary and marginalized and racism and white supremacy. You have to get that. Again, depends on the age of the child. But look, as a father of young kids, I don't want to talk to them about sex until when we hopefully, right, when they're older, much older, preteen, teenagers, but you can't. And you got to be realistic. You can't, you got to understand that there's a war on children, which, by the way, if you guys haven't seen it, my friends Robbie and I know you've been seeing it, Robbie and Landon, thewaronchildren.com. It is a mind-blowing documentary. Everybody got to go.
That you were in. That you were in. Don't be shy.
I was in it, but I promise you, I'm the worst part in it. So everybody did a great job in it. It's called thewaronchildren.com. Go see it. It's incredible. You should show your family, especially if you have family that goes, this is just fear mongering. This is GOP talking points. Show them the film. It will change their life. It will change the lens. They have no idea the war on children. But because of this war on children, we have to adjust. And when I say adjust, I don't mean, well, I guess they just have to learn what non-binary is. No, you got to adjust it by inoculating them so that you understand. And if we have time, I'll give you this thing. I'll share something that I told one of my little kids. So here's how I describe diversity, okay, to one of my little girl. I said, is diversity always good? What's diversity? Well, diversity is difference. So it's good to have diversity of shoes, right? You can't, if you wear your Crocs in the snow, that would be kind of silly. She goes, yeah, that's good. Well, if you wear your snow boots in the pool, that's not fun, right? It's so hot, your feet gets hot, right? So isn't diversity of shoes good? Yes, it is. What about music? You're in music class, you learn different instruments, you learn about this music and jazz and African music and this music and different thing. Isn't that great? Diversity of music. Isn't that wonderful? Christmas music. Is there, And she goes, yeah, it is. So is diversity always good? She goes, yeah, it's always good. Always good. Okay. What about tires? Imagine you had a small tire and a big tire and a square tire and a triangle tire. Your car is going to be all crazy and you're going to crash. You could be like, that would be silly. I go, yeah, is diversity good then? No, diversity is not good then. Okay, so diversity is not always good, right? Right. So when someone tells us, sweetheart, when someone tells you a trait is always good, that's not true. It depends. And you have to use critical thinking. This is why mommy and daddy teaches you certain things. And as you get older, you'll start to learn, hey, that person is not very honest about that, but I know this is true, but I don't think so. So I got there first. So the next time someone tries to tell her that, I'll go, well, is that always true though? Can you think of a reason why that's not true? Is giving always good? She goes, yeah, giving's always good. You give gifts, you give things, it's always good. And you know what she said? I go, when is giving not good? I thought, oh, I'm going to get her here. She's not going to, that's hard, right? When is giving not good? That's hard, even for adults. She thought about it. She goes, giving's not always good. If you give someone a cold, that's not good. I said, there you go. That's critical thinking. And if we can get kids to critically think for themselves, it inoculates them from all this language contamination. You don't.
And even more than that, just planting the flagpole so that like you said, you have the anchor there. So now, since she's had that conversation with you, if she has it anywhere else and it differs from what you discussed, or someone raised a different point or an interesting point, without realizing it, she'll be coming back to you with feedback, and you'll have now a gauge on the types of conversations that she's having. So that's brilliant, because you are, without her even knowing, you are planting, again, flagpoles or like sensors in her mind and in her life, that now you can be tracking what's going on. You'll have a pulse on what's going on without really even, you don't have to be a hovering helicopter parent or rifling through her drawers or her journals. She'll be coming to you because you have this great conversation, even a little tiny tip of the iceberg conversation. But now you've opened that arena to her mind, and now she comes to you to speak. I mean, that's very brilliant, and that's scary too.
You know
but
what
it's
the
great.
counselors do that we all should take a page from? I love taking pages from my opponents because they're brilliant.
100%.
I mean, the water carriers are dumb as hell, but the people who drive this stuff are brilliant. If they're not brilliant, you and I probably would never met. We wouldn't be talking, right? They would have taken over the system, dismantled the system. You know what their greatest power is besides language contamination? Consistency. They're consistent.
I just had a conversation
A
about
little
this. They will
flag, a little
stay.
thing, a little
Yes.
story. So you as parents have to be consistent. It can't just be one conversation. It has to be reinforcement. So there's something in psychology called framing. Your framing
Yes.
has to be stronger than theirs. And yet that framing in your child's mind has to be stronger. It's like a frame in a house. If your frame is you're just too busy, you don't teach them, talk to them, coach them, mentor them. If you don't have that frame, someone's going to come in and they're going to replace that frame in your house. But if you have a strong frame, yeah, they might try and they might even get into your house a little bit, but you can kick them out because your frame is good. So your frame has to be stronger. And the only way to do a strong frame isn't 1 or 2 conversations or 10, is you have to be very consistent. And that's the thing that the schools do really good. But they know they can do good because they have time. They have your kids 7 hours a day for 12 years. They're not in a rush. They know if they don't get them in kindergarten, they'll pick them up at first grade. They don't pick them up at that thing at first grade, they'll pick them up at second grade. By the time they're in the eighth or ninth, 7th or 8th, 9th grade, then that's it. So whether they get them whether you start getting, start using pronouns in the 8th grade or the 10th grade, it doesn't matter to them because they know they're going to get your child's mind because they're consistent. So it's the
Well,
consistency.
and it is. And I think that that's been the hardest part for a lot of parents in the
Yes,
last couple of years
extremely hard.
is and admitting that we have contracted out our obligations and our duties as parents and guardians,
We've all done
not
it.
just to the state, but to people who are actively coming after our child, to some of the most dangerous people possible for our
We've
kids.
all
So I
done it.
think, and
We
I
all
think
done it.
that's been the hardest realization. And then realizing I have to look at my life and I
Mhm.
have to readjust in many cases very severely, especially
Yeah.
here in California, for example, that's so expensive to live here.
Yeah.
You have to work multiple jobs, even if you have the best intentions. I'm working 3 jobs. I'm busy because I'm working 3 jobs so that my kids can have these opportunities and these experiences. But like you said, and I did want to say this earlier, I know that right now this courage is a habit and this might be painful to make these realizations and these changes, but this, the impact you have right now on your children, as soon as you can have that impact, the greater that you will reap the benefit of that. Because like you were saying earlier, the longer you wait, the more trauma will have been caused and the more you will have to work to bring your child back. So
Yeah.
I say you have to stop the bleeding now. You're already there. There's no sense beating yourself up. You've
Yeah.
got to start working now. It's only going to be exponentially worse if you wait. And like the parents that we've seen of children who've been transitioned or are starting to transition, that is the pain and the time and the money that you never anticipated ever spending. Just imagine doing the work within your home, within your relationships and your family today, and how much you can, how many harms and you can stave off in the future.
Pick your
Um,
heart. Everything's hard,
Yep.
right?
Pick your heart.
Pick your heart.
Exactly. Pick your
Being,
heart.
you know what? We're grinding and trying to earn a living is hard. Grinding when everybody's resting is hard. Being poor is hard.
Right.
Being healthy is hard. It's a pain in the ass. Being unhealthy is also hard. Pulling your kids from school or at least working and fighting and, making time that you don't have is hard. Saying, honey, you're not a girl and having them take your daughter or take your son away, that's hard too. So pick your heart.
I totally agree with you.